Good morning, Grace Place. Come on, stand to our feet. When all I see is the battle, you see my victory. When all I see is a mountain, you see a mountain move. And as I walk through the shadows, your love surrounds me. There's nothing to fear now, for I am safe with you. So when I fight on my knees with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you, and every fear I lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. And if you are for me, who can be against me? Yes, God. For Jesus, there's nothing impossible for you. Yeah. When all I see are the ashes, you see the beauty. When all I see is a cross, God, you see the empty tomb. So when I fight on my knees with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you, and every fear I lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. Almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. Come on, church. Almighty fortress, yes, you go before us, yes you do. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you win
found mercy in your eyes to fulfill the law and prophets. To a virgin came the word from a throne of endless glory to a cradle in the dirt. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. To reveal the kingdom coming and to reconcile the lost, to redeem the whole creation. You did not despise the cross, for even in your suffering you saw to the other side, knowing this was our salvation. Jesus, for our sake you died. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. In the moment that you rose, all of heaven held its breath, till the storm was moved for good, for the Lamb had conquered death. And the dead rose from their tombs, and the angels stood in awe, for the souls of all who'd come to the Father are restored. And the church of Christ was born, and the Spirit lit the flame. And now this gospel truth of old shall not kneel, shall not fade. By His blood and in His name, in His freedom I am freed. For the love of Jesus Christ, who has resurrected me. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of Kings. Praise forever to the King of Kings.
God, we give you praise in this place. We give you honor in this place. Lord, I believe in this moment you want to show us your glory in a way that we've never seen or experienced before. So in this room, in this service, God, we open our hearts to all that you have. Open our hearts to all that you want to show us, teach us, unite us in your Spirit. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. You guys can have a seat.
Good morning and welcome to Grace Place. If this is your first time here, we are excited to have you joining us, and we would love to be able to connect with you. If you didn't make it by the VIP tent as you were coming in today, we invite you to stop by there on your way out. Our VIP team can answer any questions that you may have. Plus, we have a special welcome gift just for you. If you're joining us for the first time online, we haven't forgotten about you. You can text the word welcome to 970-800-2421, and we will connect with you there. In today's message, we are going to be looking at the fruit of the Spirit described as faithfulness. We, as God's children, are called to be faithful because God Himself is faithful. And although our faithfulness to Him may slip and falter, His faithfulness to us never fails. 2 Timothy speaks this truth when it says, "If we are unfaithful, He remains faithful, for He cannot deny who He is." So we are called to be faithful, not to earn God's acceptance of us, for we're already completely accepted. But we are faithful to God by our thoughts and our actions as a response to His steadfast faithfulness and love for us. Our faithfulness to God can look many different ways, but one of those ways is by offering what we are given back to God as a display of obedience and dependence on Him. This offering back to God can be through our time and our talent, through serving, offering our treasure to the work of the ministry through the local church. And by this, we acknowledge that everything that we have is a gift from Him, and we demonstrate our faithfulness by offering it back to Him. So one way that you can offer your time is by becoming a Kids Hope mentor. So Kids Hope is a mentoring program where we partner with our local elementary schools right here in Berthoud to provide friendship and mentoring to kids in need. To find out more about Kids Hope, go to graceplace.org and click on the Events tab. So if you are ready to take the next step of giving a portion back through the local church, there are 3 easy ways to do so. You can give online at graceplace.org. You can text any amount to 84321. Or if you're on campus, you can drop either cash or check in the giving boxes at the back of the auditorium. Now let's continue in our time of worship.
I don't count it a burden, whatever, to have to care for her. I need to do everything. From the moment she gets up to the moment she goes to bed, I do absolutely everything. Clean her teeth, shower, dress, everything. But it's a privilege. I count it a great privilege to care for this one that I've loved all of these years and continue to love. This is the year when we'll celebrate our 50th wedding anniversary. Our stories have been a lovely story. I first saw her when she was 8 years old, and her brother became my best friend. We grew up together, and as we grew up, she was there, and I knew that she used to stare at me when I was playing footy with her brother and another friend, and when we used to ride bikes, and she kept staring at me, but I wasn't interested. I was 17, she was 16. I saw her dolled up, dressed up, and she had an A-line dress on, and boom, it was gone. She was the one for me then, absolutely. When we first started dating, I used to ride my bike from where I lived to where she was, and that was about 5 kilometers on a Saturday afternoon, because it was the only chance we had to get together. And it was hair wash day for her, and she used a special cream in her hair for a shampoo, and I can still smell it because that smell was so particular, so nice. It was just absolutely special. We had a bike. I used to ride everywhere on my bike, and then Glad had a bike as well, and we put a baby chair on the front of her bike, and so we carried our babies around on the bike with her as well. So yeah, bike's been part of our lives, and I guess that has something to do with us now. Around about 2004-05, I began to notice that there were things going wrong. She was finally diagnosed with the horrible disease of Alzheimer's. Having lived overseas, I knew that with a bike you can do lots of things. So I had a bike made, a bike chair made. We take it to the beach and ride along beside the beach. And as we do that, we see a lot of people come talk to us because it's a unique thing. Nobody else has got a bike chair quite like that one. I am determined to care for her every need, every need. You see, God has loved us so unconditionally. And I understand that God has put his love in my heart. And because I realize how much God has loved me, that's how I too can love my lovely wife. She has done so much for me over all of these years. Now she can't, but I can, and I can return her love. And it's a love that, well, to me, means I can do everything for her. She's my princess, I'm her William, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Would you have it any other way? No, not at all. We love each other.
What a beautiful and heart-touching example of love and faithfulness. Anybody been to a wedding lately? I know you have. You got married. Some of you have. Hey, think about this. What's the most important part of a wedding? Is it the venue, the caterer, the DJ, the music, the cake, the photographer, the tuxedos and dresses, the reception? What's the most important part? The pastor, duh. Just kidding. You said the bride, that was a good answer. I submit to you the most important part is the vows. Over the years, I've had the privilege of doing many, many weddings, not as many as I used to because we share the responsibility with other pastors now. But I've seen elaborate ones, simple ones, everything in between. And somewhere along the line, it became popular to start writing vows. Sometimes people would say, oh, can we write our own vows? And I'd say, sure, it's your wedding, you do it. And sometimes they were really good, and sometimes not so good. There was a few times where it was just like stand-up comedy or poetry, but not really going anywhere and saying anything, just a lot of words. And so I decided to reconsider, and I started saying, okay, if you're going to write your own vows, you got to send them to me first for approval, okay, because there might be a few edits. And then I decided, why do that? And so lately what I've done is just said, if you want to write your own vows, fine. You say what you want to say to each other, and then let's do just that one sentence traditional vow at the end, okay? Because that says everything in it that needs to be said. Because I don't want the vows to be said and there never be a promise, a covenant promise made before God and witnesses to be faithful to each other until death do us part. Now I realize it doesn't always work that way, but that's God's intention. And that should be our intention if we're Christ followers and we're going into a sacred covenant of marriage. And so, traditional vows or something like this, they don't always have to be in this old-fashioned language, but it would be something like this. I take thee to be my wedded wife or husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish till death do us part, according to God's holy ordinance, and thereto I pledge thee my faith. I pledge thee my faith is just an old-fashioned way of saying, I promise to be faithful. And the vows don't have to have that, King James old language. But in my opinion, they do need to include words like in sickness and in health, till death do us part, because that's God's perspective. And by the way, He's the one that invented marriage. Marriage is not a contract. It's a covenant, a sacred, permanent covenant before God. We're in a series called Believe. And we've been in the series for quite a while. We've only got 2 weeks left of this. Hopefully this has been a helpful season for you. We started with basic beliefs, what we believe about God, and then we turned to core practices so that we can maintain our relationship with God. And then this summer we've been talking about who is it that we are becoming if we're in a relationship with the Lord? What are key virtues in our life that will start to manifest the fruit of the Spirit if we stay connected to the Lord? And today, we're talking about faithfulness. Now, with most of these messages, I have started with how God has modeled this virtue for us. And that certainly is the case when it comes to faithfulness. So I want to take you through just a barrage of verses from the Old Testament briefly here at the start to just give you a feel for this theme in Scripture. God described to Moses who he was with these words, Exodus 34:6. And he passed in front of Moses, proclaiming, the Lord, the compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness. Later, Moses encouraged the Israelites to be faithful to the Lord, and he reminded them, Deuteronomy 7:9, know therefore that the Lord your God, he is the faithful God, keeping his covenant of love to 1,000 generations of those who love him and keep his commandments. Last week, I talked to you about a rich Hebrew word, chesed, and it's often translated loving kindness. Well, that's the word here when it says covenant of love. And it's the closest we get to grace in the Hebrew language. But it's talking about love that's based on a covenant. And here is an example that when God makes a covenant of love, he will also be faithful to it, even to 1,000 generations, it says. In Psalms, there are many examples of God's faithfulness, and I'll just give you a few. Psalm 36, verse 5, your love, Lord, reaches to the heavens, your faithfulness to the skies. In other words, there's no end to God's love and faithfulness. You can never exhaust it. Psalm 86, 11, teach me your way, Lord, that I may rely on your faithfulness. Give me an undivided heart that I may fear your name. If you learn to look for and mark the faithfulness of God, not only in history, but in your history, in your life, then it becomes something, as this text says, that you learn to rely on God's faithfulness. And it helps you to have an undivided heart, to be undivided in your loyalty to him. Psalm 91:4, he will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart. In other words, you can take comfort and you can receive protection when you know the Lord is faithful. Psalm 92, verse 1 and 2, it is good to praise the Lord and make music to your name. That's what we're doing here today together. O Most High, proclaiming your love in the morning and your faithfulness at night. I was reading that verse this morning, and I thought, for the next week I'm going to try every time I wake up to thank the Lord for his love, and just before I go to sleep, thank the Lord for his faithfulness that day. His mercies are new every morning. Lamentations 3:22 and 23 says, because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. I love that verse, and I quote it often, especially if I have had a hard day the day before, because I remind myself today is a new day, and I can rely on God's unfailing love and great faithfulness, and it's new every morning. And if you're discouraged, or if you've been mistreated, or if you've felt like you have been taken advantage of, please realize the Lord knows about it and he cares. And he will treat you with tenderness. Look at this verse from Isaiah 42, verse 3. A bruised reed he will not break. Speaking of tenderness here, a smoldering wick he will not snuff out. In faithfulness he will bring forth justice. Isn't that encouraging? Think of his faithfulness and tenderness. And I was reminded this week also that God's faithfulness is something that parents should be teaching their children about. Look at Isaiah 38:19. It says, the living, they praise you, as I'm doing today. Parents, tell their children about your faithfulness. Parents, here's a responsibility for parents. Tell your kids love to hear stories about your life, right? How you got together, if you're married, and that sort of thing. They like to hear those stories. Make sure you intentionally include references when you tell your kids stories about God's faithfulness so that they learn to look for it as well. They learn to live their lives with marking God's faithfulness and praising him for it. Have you seen evidence of God's faithfulness in your life? Can you make a list of it? It can be helpful to do that sometimes. Grace Place is going to have a birthday. We're turning 25 on September 12th, next month. We're going to have a party. We're going to have a celebration. And as I look back, there's so many examples of God's faithfulness. By the way, I've got a new book, and I'm going to be, the trustees have generously decided we're going to give that away free, one per family, starting at our anniversary. So hopefully you will read that book and you find it meaningful. But there are so many examples of God's faithfulness in the story of Grace Place. And this week, Pastor Hollis and I were talking, and he reminded me of of the fact that faithfulness was actually written in the dust out here one time on this property. When we were looking to find a new place to worship because we'd outgrown our last place, we explored many options, and it didn't seem like doors were opening. Prayed a lot about it. I remember one day driving down this road and turning around in that cul-de-sac down there and looking at this little strip of land right here that's so visible and accessible to northern Colorado right here on the highway, and thinking, wow, this would be a great place for church, and asking the Lord if it could happen. There wasn't a for sale sign on the property, so I went onto the county website. You know, you can go on there and find out who owns properties, and I went on there and found a name. And so I Googled that name, and I found out this guy was involved in a number of real estate deals in Denver, and I kept reading down until finally I found a phone number associated with his name. So I called and left a message and said, hey, I'm looking at your name on Larimer County properties, and are you interested in selling a piece of property in Berthoud? Didn't hear anything back for a long time, 6 months maybe. Forgot all about it, really. Didn't forget about the need, but forgot about the man. And then I got a phone call one day, and it was him. And I didn't recognize the name, and he said, are you still interested in that property in Berthoud? I'm like, oh, yeah. He says, I go to Arizona during the winter, and you left this message on my home phone number, and so I'm just going through my messages. And I said, yeah, let's talk. So sure enough, he was interested in selling this land. Pretty big price tag on it. So we started to talk about what that would look like, and during our negotiations, he lost the property in a bankruptcy. So now the bank owned it. So we started to negotiate with the bank, praying all the time for God's assistance through this, and then the bank went bankrupt. And so there was a bank in Chicago that bought all the loans, but they wouldn't let us talk to them. We had to go through a third-party negotiator in Kansas City, so there was always this lag time to try to talk to the person in Kansas City who talks to the bank in Chicago, and we went back and forth. The good news was we did end up, after a long time, making a deal, and it ended up being almost half of what the initial price tag was going to be on this land. So that was an evidence of God's faithfulness. Then we had to figure out how to build on it. And it cost a lot of money to do this. And so we prayed about it. We did a capital campaign. People sacrificed and gave, and some people sacrificed a lot and sold things and took home equity loans and made 3-year commitments to the Reimagine campaign. But in the middle, or about a year into the whole situation, while we were in the development stage, we actually got bad news that the prices were escalating all around the country at that time. And so it was going to cost a lot more than they had originally quoted, and we didn't know how we were going to swing it. And so we prayed a lot. We said, Lord, we need your help. We actually had to do a little mini campaign within the campaign. No pastor wants to do that. But we did what we had to do to keep putting the need out there, and people stepped up and responded. But at one time, we felt like we were going to have to scale back our plan, even this phase 1 plan with 2 buildings. We didn't know if we could do 2 buildings. We said maybe we could only do 1. Maybe we could figure out how to put children upstairs and put our offices in trailers or something. We looked at a whole bunch of different ideas, and then we said, no, we've got to have a children's building. Let's do them both, but maybe we can scale back some stuff. And so our building team, started doing what the construction people call value engineering. And I found out value engineering means take all the cool stuff out. I don't like it. But maybe it's going to be necessary to do some of that. So we started taking things out, like that big, beautiful fireplace outside. We started taking things out to try to see if we could save money. And somewhere along that time, we started doing prayer walks around this property, even before this. But Pastor Hollis decided that he wanted to come out here and camp on the property and fast for a week and do prayer walks every day around this property, and as to asking for God's favor. It was a great idea. I came out and did, probably 10 miles of walks with him. It's about a mile around here. And people were calling up our office saying, hey, there's a homeless person out on your property. See his tent out there, a tent over here by the trees. And he decided to write down words in the dirt all the way around the property at different places. So we would stop and pray for. One place I was very honored. He was praying for me. He was praying for you. He was praying for the community. He had different names and he had a word down, favor, and then we would pray for God's favor on this project going forward. And then he had a word at one spot that said faithfulness. And we would stop there and just thank God for his faithfulness thus far. And I remember on one prayer walk, it was a snowy day, and we had a bunch of Grace Place people on this walk. And we went down, we were way down at the end of the property, and the building was already in construction, but it wasn't very far into it. And I stopped them before we prayed. We'd pray at these same spots. I stopped them and I said, if you see a stone fireplace on the outside of that building, you will know that God was faithful. And today, if you're driving north on 287 and you look, you will see a huge stone, real stone fireplace on this building. And it's every time I see it, it's evidence of God's faithfulness. And I thank him. And I thank him. One of our members, by the way, donated all those stones and the stones for our monument signs. What a blessing. How many of you know that God is faithful? Psalm 146:6. He is the maker of heaven and earth, the sea and everything in them. He remains faithful forever. Good news. Now, because he is faithful, he calls us also to be faithful. Faithful to our vows, to him and to each other. I think God is more impressed with your faithfulness than your successfulness. Senator Mark Hatfield told of touring Calcutta years ago with Mother Teresa. She was visiting the so-called house of dying where sick kids were cared for in their last days. And then there were lines of poor that were standing by the hundred to receive medical attention. And he watched her and her team ministering and feeding and nursing those left by others to die. And Hatfield was so overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of the suffering and what these loving nuns were facing on a daily basis. And so he said to Mother Teresa, "How can you bear the load without being crushed by it?" And I love her response. She said, "My dear Senator, I am not called to be successful. I am called to be faithful." That's a godly perspective. Our culture doesn't tell us that. Our culture shouts very loudly, success is what is important, not faithfulness. That's not how God views it. He's not opposed to you being successful, as long as your success doesn't come ahead of your love for him. But what he promises to reward is faithfulness. Jesus said that those who invest in his kingdom will hear these words of commendation, Matthew 25:21. "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness." So what does it look like to be faithful? As I asked myself that question this week, I was reminded of a chapter in the Bible, Hebrews 11, that I love. It's often called the faith chapter. And it is sort of a Bible Hall of Fame. It is a Reader's Digest condensed version of the Old Testament. By the way, 3 Broncos went into the Hall of Fame this week. Let it be noted for the record. We're back into the NFL season for those who care. Minority here, it sounds. That is not the subject of this sermon, though. But Hebrews 11 is the Bible Hall of Fame. And the subject matter is faith. It begins with verse 1. Now faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. And then as you continue to read, almost every verse starts with by faith Abel, by faith Enoch, by faith Noah, by faith Abraham. I think it's 30-some times the word faith appears. But what kind of faith is it talking about? Because there are different types of faith. Think about it. Think about 3 different types of faith. First, there is salvation faith. When you trust Christ for salvation, Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8 says, by grace are you saved through faith. That's salvation faith. We put our trust in Jesus. And then there is doctrinal faith. The teachings of Scripture, the basic core beliefs we've been studying in this series, is called the faith. Jude 3 says, contend for the faith that was once entrusted to all the saints. It's talking about our core beliefs, the faith. But there's a third type of faith that I like to call living faith. Practical, daily reliance on God. And that seems to be the main subject here in Hebrews 11, this third type of faith. I call it living faith for faithful living. And as you read through this great chapter, it reminds you of so many good stories in the Old Testament. And you see that faith is not just something that is passive, it's active. Most of these men and women were called to do something for God. And they had to step up and step out and take risks. They saw miracles. They learned to live with expectation, and their faith was rewarded by miracles. Now, one of the most encouraging verses for me in Hebrews 11 is this one, verse 13. All these people were still living by faith when they died. Why is that encouraging? Well, go back and read their stories. Not in Hebrews 11, but go back and read the context of their stories, and you'll find that many of these heroes of the faith had major stumbles and mess-ups and sins and problems in their life. They were not all perfect saints that never messed up. I mean, here's a few examples. Noah, great leader, used by God, got drunk once and embarrassed his whole family. Abraham, he must have had a smoking hot wife because he was always nervous when he was around somebody powerful with her, and so a couple times he lied and said, she's my sister, so that they wouldn't knock him off, and come on, Moses, or come on, Abraham. Not only are you lying, you're not willing to stand up and tell people that she's your wife. Then you scroll down to Jacob, who was a major deceiver, and stole his brother's birthright and tricked his dad. And you read down there, Rahab, she was a prostitute for a while. Samson, verse 32, Samson was a he-man with a she weakness. And David had a similar problem with roaming eyes that got him in trouble one time, major trouble. And yet he was a man who God used not only to lead his people, but to write part of the scriptures for us, and said he was a man after God's own heart. So when I read verse 13, it says, all these people were still living by faith when they died. I find it encouraging because what it says to me is God didn't give up on them, and they didn't give up on him. They were still living by faith when they died. You see, living faith perseveres to the end. I made an agreement with God a long time ago. I'm not giving up. No matter how many times I mess up, I'm not giving up. And the more I understand about God's character, the more secure I am in our agreement because I know he isn't giving up either. Living faith perseveres to the end. And living faith perseveres to the end no matter what the end is. Because in this life, God has promised his people rewards in the next life. In this life, it doesn't always end the same for everyone. In verse 32 of Hebrews 11, there's a shift from specific stories and people's names being mentioned to general examples from history. It says, and what more shall I say? He's like, if I keep going detailed like this, I'm going to rewrite the Old Testament. So let's just summarize. What more shall I say? I do not have time to tell about Gideon, Barak, Samson, and Jephthah, about David and Samuel and the prophets who through faith conquered kingdoms. Now listen to the tone of just victory and triumph. Conquered kingdoms, administered justice, gained what was promised, shut the mouths of lions. That's Daniel. Quenched the fury of the flames, his three friends, and escaped the edge of the sword, whose weakness was turned to strength, and who became powerful in battle and routed foreign armies. Women received back their dead, raised to life again. Victory after victory, triumph. But now notice a shift, a sudden shift in the middle of verse 35. Without warning, there were others who were tortured, refusing to be released so that they might gain an even better resurrection. Some faced jeers and flogging and even chains and imprisonment. They were put to death by stoning. They were sawed in two. Ugh. Tradition says prophet Isaiah was put into a hollow log and they sawed it in half. It's not good when that happens. I lost my place. They were sawed in two. They were killed by the sword. They went into went about in sheepskins, goatskins, destitute, persecuted, and mistreated. The world was not worthy of them. They wandered in deserts and mountains, living in caves and in holes in the ground. Wow. Living faith perseveres to the end, no matter what the end is. Now, when you put your faith in God and follow Him, sometimes it ends in an apparent great victory, triumph, miraculous things happen. For example, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, you can read about them in Daniel 3, and they're alluded to here. They had to face a fiery furnace, and they were not going to bow to the big idol that Nebuchadnezzar had made because they wanted to be loyal to their God. And so he threatened them. He said, I'm going to throw you in that fiery furnace if you don't bow. And he did. But God did a miracle. In fact, Jesus joined him in the flames. He says, well, didn't I throw 3 in? There's 4 in there. Come on out of there, you guys. And it was a tremendous victory. But in this fallen world of sin, it doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes praying Christians with loads of faith do get persecuted or mistreated or martyred. But I love the attitude of those 3 boys facing the threat of death. What they said to the king, I've often returned to. So I want to have this attitude. They said to the king, if we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and He will deliver us. He will deliver us from your majesty's hand, they said. They had faith to believe God can do miracles. But, they said, even if He does not, we want you to know, your majesty, we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. We know God can do anything He wants to do. And we're going to pray for deliverance. But even if He doesn't choose to do that because of His sovereign plan, we're going to trust that He is good, and we're still going to be faithful to Him. That's an attitude of a faithful follower. Sweeping across Germany at the end of World War II, Allied forces were going farm by farm, through the houses, through the barns, looking for snipers. And at one abandoned house that was almost a heap of rubble, they had flashlights, and they got all the way down into the cellar, and they found out that some escaped prisoners of war had been hiding there. They weren't there now, but on a crumbling wall, a victim of the Holocaust scratched a Star of David, and beneath it, in rough lettering, wrote the message, I believe in the sun even when it's not shining. I believe in love even when feeling it not. I believe in God even when He is silent. That's faith. That's living faith. It perseveres to the end, no matter what the end is. So how can you have that kind of faith? I submit to you there's only one way, and that is by keeping your eyes on Jesus. And that's what the text tells us, because the conclusion and the application of Hebrews 11 is in the first verses of Hebrews 12, where we read this. Therefore, based on all these stories of faith, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, their lives witness to us, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before Him, He endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of God, at the throne of God. Therefore, is the transition word for the application of all those stories in Hebrews 11. The heroes of the faith, their lives witness to us. Therefore, let us, the text says, let us run this race. It's the imagery of the Christian life, running a race. And it says if you're going to do this, first of all, you need to throw some stuff off. Throw off whatever's hindering you. Whatever's hindering your Christian experience. It might be bad stuff, it might be good stuff, but if it's slowing you down, throw it off. Habits, relationships, something you do too much of, not enough of, something that's slowing you down, throw it off and keep throwing it off. And especially the sin that so easily entangles. Ask God for victory so that you can run. And run, it says, with perseverance, because this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And it's not just any race. The text says the race marked out for us, which has been marked out right here for us. And then the important words, fixing our eyes on Jesus. if you're going to go run a race, there's a lot of different things that you can fix your eyes on that will distract you. You could fix your eyes on circumstances around you. Oh, it's a hot day and the course is not smooth and it's too hilly. You can get distracted. You can focus on yourself. Your side hurts, your shoes causing a blister. You can focus on others, those that you're passing, those that are passing you. Or you can focus on the goal. And for believers, the goal is a person. It's Jesus. He is the author and perfecter of our faith. He is the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. It says he's the one that gives us faith at the beginning, the pioneer or author, and he's the one that develops our faith and keeps us faithful to the end, the perfecter of our faith. And when you consider his incredible sacrifice, you realize that no sacrifice is too great in response. It was for the joy set before him that he endured the cross. And then verse 3 says, consider him who endured such opposition from sinners so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. Nothing motivates and calls for faithful commitment like a clear picture of a bloodstained cross where Jesus took your place and mine. I want to stay faithful to my Lord, and I want to stay faithful to my wife. And that's why we have agreed on certain guardrails in our marriage. Guardrails can be helpful. That's why they put them up on the corners of roads that have steep drop-offs in the mountains. Have you ever driven the $1 Million Highway? Yes. You know where that is? Yes. Yeah. I'm sure it costs more than $1 million. I don't know, but that's what they call it. And it goes from Ouray over to Silverton, down in southern Colorado. Beautiful drive. The roads are narrow. It's paved, but it's narrow, but there's drop-offs, and there's no guardrails. And I was reading about it, and the reason they don't have guardrails on that highway is because they try to keep it open all year. A lot of the big mountain passes get closed in the winter, but they have to get snow plows up there, and there's nowhere to put the snow, so they don't put guardrails on there so they can push the snow off the cliffs, right? But some people have gone off there too. Guardrails can be helpful. We had hosted the leadership summit here not long ago, and it was excellent. One of the speakers talked about being so discouraged that he tried to commit suicide years ago. And the way he attempted it was tried to drive off a bridge so it would look like an accident. But fortunately, the guardrails did their job, and although he crashed his vehicle, the guardrail kept him from going over the side. What type of guardrails do you establish if you are married and you want to stay faithful to your vows? Selene and I have made some simple agreements, and all our married staff here also make these agreements here at church. And they're just simple agreements, like not to be alone with someone of the opposite sex, like going out to eat or riding in a car, or in the office, unless there's other people in the building. We have windows on all of our office doors intentionally so that, there's accountability. And it's not because we don't trust each other. Part of it is protecting our reputation, but part of it is protecting our vows to be faithful. We don't want to flirt with the edge of the road because there is a cliff that can lead to destruction. Maybe you start flirting with the edge. Of course, there's many positive things that we are committed to doing to keep love and romance alive, but there are also some guardrails. We have made vows to be faithful for better, for worse, richer or poor, sickness and health, to love and to cherish till death do us part. One of the most inspiring stories of living this out is found in a little book called A Promise Kept. And it tells the story of Robertson McQuilkin. And I highly recommend that little book if you want. It's a short read, but it's so encouraging. And if you want just a little summary of it, you can Google Living by Vows, where he summarizes the story. For 22 years, McQuilkin was president of Columbia International University. It's a Christian college and seminary. He loved his job. He loved the faculty and staff, and they loved him. Students loved him. It was a great partnership. His wife, Muriel, was a successful person herself. She had a radio show. She was a public speaker. But then her memory began to fail. And it got worse progressively until finally, sadly, was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. McQuilkin said that he decided to trust the Lord to work a miracle in Muriel, if he so desired, or work a miracle in me, if not. As the disease worsened, the university board arranged for a companion to be home with Muriel so Robertson could go to the office daily. He writes, "During these 2 years, it became increasingly difficult to keep Muriel home. As soon as I left, she would take out after me. With me, she was content. Without me, she was distressed, sometimes terror-stricken. The walk to school is a mile round trip. She would make that trip as many as 10 times a day. Sometimes at night, when I helped her undress, I found bloody feet. When I told my family doctor, he choked up. Such love," he said simply. Then after a moment, he said, "I have a theory that the characteristics developed across the years come out at times like these." Finally, McQuilkin decided he needed to resign his job as president of the university so that he could stay home and care for his wife. Now, that's not always possible. Just like marriages don't always survive, and we have to cope with that, even though it's not God's ideal. We go on. And sometimes we have to put loved ones in care facilities. But for him, he decided he didn't have to. Some of his well-meaning friends and colleagues urged him not to resign, to put her in a care facility. Surely people would understand that he had done his best. You know, the common view in our culture is that marriage is all about having our needs met. And as an illustration of this, a woman wrote a letter to a national columnist saying, "I ended the relationship because it wasn't meeting my needs." And the therapist's response was predictable. What were your needs that didn't get met by him in the relationship? Do you still have the same needs? What would he have to do to fill those needs? Can he do it? Is he able? Needs for communication, understanding, affirmation, common interests, sexual fulfillment, the list goes on. Those are all wonderful. To have your needs met is a wonderful thing. But our contemporary society would suggest that if you can't get your needs met, just move on. Forget it. Find someone to meet your needs. That's not what covenant love and faithfulness looks like. Listen to a brief excerpt from Robertson McQuilkin's resignation speech.
I haven't in my life experienced easy decision-making on major decisions, but one of the simplest and clearest decisions I've had to make is this one, because circumstances dictated it. Muriel, now, in the last couple of months, seems to be almost happy when with me, and almost never happy when not with me. In fact, she seems to feel trapped, becomes very fearful, sometimes almost terror, and when she can't get to me, there can be anger. She's in distress. But when I'm with her, she's happy and contented. And so I must be with her at all times. And you see, it's not only that I promised in sickness and in health, till death do us part. And I'm a man of my word. But as I have said, I don't know with this group, but I have said publicly, it's the only fair thing. She sacrificed for me for 40 years to make my life possible. So, if I cared for her for 40 years, I'd still be in debt. However, there's much more. It's not that I have to, it's that I get to. I love her very dearly, and you can tell it's not easy to talk about. She's a delight. It's a great honor to care for such a wonderful person.
That's inspiring. Modern day example, real life example of faithfulness. Jesus said, Revelation 2:10, be faithful even to the point of death, and I will give you life as your victor's crown. Let's pray. Father, I thank you so much for your faithfulness. So many examples of it in the history of the world, but also in each of our lives. And we praise you for that. Thank you that you do not give up on us even when we mess up. We all do, and we thank you for your forgiveness. Teach us to be faithful to you, to each other, and to our vows. In Jesus' name, amen.
So I'll stand to our feet. We're going to sing another song. Can't go back to the beginning. Can't control what tomorrow will bring. But I know here in the middle is a place where you promised to be. I'm not enough unless you come. Will you meet me here again? 'Cause all I want is all you are. Will you meet me here again? As I walk now through the valley, let your love rise above every fear, like the sun shaping the shadows. In my weakness, your glory appears. I'm not enough unless you come. Will you meet me here again? 'Cause all I want is all you are. Will you meet me here again? Yes, I'm not enough. I'm not enough unless you come. Will you meet me here again? 'Cause all I want, and all I want is all you are. Will you meet me here again? Yes, Lord. We draw near to you. How faithful you are, God. 'Cause not for a minute was I forsaken. The Lord is in this place. Yes, the Lord is in this place. Come, Holy Spirit, dry bones awaken. The Lord is in this place. unless you come. Will you meet me here again? 'Cause all I want is all you are. Will you meet me here again, God? Oh, I'm not enough, not enough, unless you come. Will you meet me here again? Oh, 'cause all I want is all you are. Come meet me here again. Thank you, Lord. Lord, we thank you that we got the opportunity to learn and focus on what faithfulness looks like, God. Lord, I pray that everyone in this room, Lord, that we can just walk out of this room knowing that you are faithful to us. Lord, you show up every day. You are loyal to your promises. You're always willing to just bless us. And so, God, for that, I just pray that we can be a reflection of Jesus in the world around us and the relationships around us. So, God, be with us this week. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Everybody, it's the highlight of my week to worship with you. I know there's a lot of people here that agree with that. Nothing like worshiping with the body of Christ. If you're visiting with us for the first time, we want to make sure that you know about our VIP tent out there. If you haven't said hi to them yet, go say hi to those guys. Wanting to just bless you and answer any questions for you. Otherwise, be blessed. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.